The first thing I did after being reborn was to quietly kick away the magnolia flower at my feet because in the Great Liang, the most dazzling young general had publicly declared, "Whoever picks up this magnolia shall be my wife." The noble ladies in the hall scrambled madly for it, but I quietly kicked the flower near me to someone else. In my previous life, when I picked up that flower, Yan Ci merely stood there with indifference. Only later did I realize, he was only acting out of spite. His beloved had married another, and he wanted to prove he had moved on. But I lived my entire life in the shadow of his beloved, dying in a fire amidst endless regret. Now, given a second chance, the magnolia I had kicked away was suddenly swept up by a sinister gust of wind and landed right on my lap. The Empress smiled, wanting to preside over the match. "Let me decide this marriage arrangement." I immediately knelt down to decline. "This humble girl dares not. I already have someone in my heart." I used that excuse to make my exit. The evening breeze blew past, carrying the slight chill of early spring. The white magnolias in the backyard were striking under the moonlight. Taking a sharp breath of cold air, I had truly returned to this banquet. Back to being 16, before fate had bound me. In my past life, when I found that flower, I thought it was a sign from the heavens, but I never expected it would be the last moment of happiness in my life. When I married into the general's estate in my last life, all of Jincheng was watching the spectacle. They said General Yan didn't even look at her face. He just threw the flower casually. With her family status, is she even worthy of him? Marrying in will only bring her suffering. On the wedding night, Yan Ci never showed his face. Just as dawn was breaking, the maid whispered to me, "The general has fallen asleep in the study." I lifted my own veil and drank the nuptial wine alone. The red candles on the table burned out, wax dripping like tears. Early the next morning, Yan Ci left for the front lines without a word. From then on, the whole household knew the general hated his bride. My mother-in-law criticized me in every possible way. "Someone from such an ordinary family simply lacks grace. You can't even keep your husband at home. What use are you?" I knelt on both knees, not daring to look up, tears welling in my eyes. I asked myself over and over, "Shui Zhuxin, what exactly did you do wrong? Your mistake was marrying a man who doesn't love you. But in this life, you had no choice." In the 5th year of our marriage, Yan Ci returned from the front. He arrived home in the middle of the night. I was exhausted, but I still followed the rules of the house, waiting with a single lamp lit in the main hall. But Yan Ci had likely long abandoned those rules. He was very surprised to see me. I smiled dutifully, acting like a proper wife. Yan Ci's eyes flickered. After a moment, he held me tight and let out a long sigh. "My wife has suffered. From now on, I will never leave again." I was stunned. My cold, withered heart suddenly skipped a beat. That night, he left his kisses everywhere. I could hardly breathe. My husband gripped my waist. His voice deep and husky. "Call me General, and I might let you go." After that night, he acted like a young man in his first love, buying me feminine trinkets every few days, jewelry and ornaments, sweet treats and pastries. At the time, I had no idea. The reason for his return was mainly because his white moonlight had given birth to a child, just as he originally married me because she had married another. I understood nothing, simply happy in my foolishness. I thought life was finally getting better. Until that one evening, Yan Ci stumbled into my bedroom, heavily drunk. This time, he didn't turn off the lights. Instead, he sat by the bed and watched me. He had never looked at me with such affectionate eyes before. Then, he called out a name. My whole body went cold. Who wouldn't know of Meng Chonghuan? The empire's only female commander, renowned for her many achievements, equal in rank to Yan Ci. With her silver horse and red spear, she was so valiant. That night, Yan Ci's actions were different from before, especially gentle. Yet I could not stop the tears from falling. The image of that pure white moonlight mixed with my tears, clouding my vision. I thought back to that banquet many years ago, when the young commander threw that magnolia at my feet. I looked back at these years in the general's inner courtyard, how I spent nights listening to the watchman's bell and crying until dawn. The pain was so great I felt I might die, but Yan Ci noticed nothing. He lay upon me, his shadow almost swallowing me whole, as he tenderly and passionately whispered, "Chonghuan." In the years that followed, I stayed in my place and performed my duties. I was polite and distant with him. Even the most critical mother-in-law could find no fault. I once heard Yan Ci's subordinates sigh, "A matchless family." Alas, the heart is not where the home is. My heart was left at the border long ago. I had long stopped caring, but for some reason, my heart still ached. Then, Meng Chonghuan died in battle. Yan Ci locked himself in his room, refusing to see anyone. I didn't want to bother with him, but his men were desperate and came to beg me, please, go in and check on the commander. I walked inside. The lights were off in the room. Yan Ci hugged me from behind. Meng Chonghuan, don't go. His voice was slurred and choked with sobs. You married someone else, and I accepted it. You had a child, and I accepted it. Why did you have to die in battle? Many unsent letters were scattered on the desk. I saw that each one began with Chonghuan. I stood in the darkness listening to his sobbing for a very, very long time. Then, I decided to grant his wish. I took those letters filled with deep affection, one by one, and laid them on the floor. I have a weak personality. Since childhood, I had never done anything rebellious, not even daring to raise my voice. But at that moment, I suddenly didn't want to continue like this anymore. I set the love letters on fire. I didn't wake him up. The letters curled and withered in the flames, like paper money burned for the dead. Commander Meng, since you are so devoted, let Yan Ci go with her. The fire reflected on my face, flickering between light and shadow. I stroked Yan Ci's cheek and whispered softly, do you hear me? She is very lonely. General Yan, go and be with her. Go to her. I have burned all your letters to send to her. I should be next. The flames suddenly grew larger, spreading to one side of him. I stood up and blended into the night. I didn't know where I was going. I couldn't go back to my parents' home. And this wealthy estate was never my home. The world is so big. But where else can I go? Servants ran past me in a panic. How foolish. They shouted, the madam. The madam doesn't know how to put out the fire. I stared at my reflection in the water. She had always been submissive, like a statue made of mud, with no temper at all, allowing herself to be manipulated. But now, her eyes were curved in a wild laugh. She said to me, Shui Zhuxin, you are free. The moment the reflection shattered, moonlight lit up the corridor. I looked at the magnolia on the tree, recalling the banquet just now. Yan Ci was still the young commander I remembered. Arrogant and cold. Aloof and superior. He only showed a spark of life when I broke off the engagement. Rest assured, I won't. Just as I was reminiscing, a mocking voice suddenly whispered in my ear, you fool. A chill ran down my back. I spun around. Someone was standing in the shadows at the end of the corridor. His skin was pale, his eyes pitch black, and he cast no shadow in the moonlight. No, I suspected he wasn't human. He was an evil spirit that hadn't been fully burned in that past life. Crawling out from the heap of ashes, an icy breath brushed my neck. He called out to me with a smile. Madam. I let out a soft sigh. What a pity. Yan Ci leaned in close with a mocking half-smile. I could even sense the frigid aura emanating from him. You seem to have regrets. Yes, I said, my eyes curved in a smile. Speaking in a whisper, I failed to burn the commander to ashes, and instead let you come back in this half-dead state to find me. The night wind suddenly intensified. Yan Ci gently stroked my face. You are my lawful wife. In the underworld or the living world. Naturally, I want you to stay with me. The news of my broken engagement spread throughout the city in less than 3 days. Street gossip became more and more exaggerated. By the end, it was said that the second Miss Shui looked down on Commander Yan, and that Miss Shui already had an affair. The Shui family's status was very low. My father was only a 5th-rank official, and my mother's lifelong wish was simply for me to marry into a prestigious family. The Yan family is such an excellent household. So many people want to marry in but have no way. And look at you. Breaking the engagement to his face, even making up some story about a beloved. Mother wiped her tears. Tell me. Who is that man? I lowered my head. There is no such person. I just don't want to marry Yan Ci. Mother's tears fell even faster, as if I had caused a great catastrophe. But what did I do wrong? My only mistake was being unwilling to marry a man I don't like. And who doesn't like me back? I've lived 2 lives. I don't want to endure those days again. At dusk, the evil spirit appeared. See? Who would dare take you? Yan Ci mocked coldly. Even if the game restarts, you can still only choose me. He had been following me for several days, invisible during the day. He appeared as soon as night fell, sometimes standing in the corridor, sometimes sitting on the roof. Most of the time, he just stayed right behind me, whispering quietly. I didn't care at all. He didn't even have a body left. He was nothing more than a lonely ghost. His greatest power was merely stirring up that cold wind at the banquet. I talked back to him. Young master. You are long dead. But I am still alive. You needn't worry about who wants me. Yanxi's sore spot was touched. And he glared at me. You publicly broke the engagement. He won't let you off easily. I chuckled softly. Did that fire toast your brain too? If he wants to see a joke, he should just look in the mirror. Are you talking about that little trifle? I waited until the hunting day. The weather was clear. I hadn't planned on coming. But the Empress had sent an invitation. Whose instruction was this? It was very obvious. It's young Commander Yen. He's still thinking of you. Mother finally stopped crying. She took my hand. Jushin. This is a great honor. You must not act recklessly again. Is it a great honor? Or a great joke? I lowered my head and said no more. Top-grade pear-scented incense burned in the Empress's tent. Noble ladies sat in small groups, whispering. That's the second Miss Shui. She actually broke the engagement with young Commander Yen to his face. She really doesn't know her place. I've heard this kind of talk countless times in my past life. Back then, when I married into the commander's estate, they mocked me for social climbing. Now that I've broken the engagement, it's become me not knowing my place. While they were chatting, Yen Ci arrived halfway through. The ladies in the tent all blushed. Today he wore a set of black hunting gear. Broad shoulders and narrow waist, his figure was upright. He paid his respects to the Empress, his gaze slowly falling on me. Miss Shui is here as well. I didn't respond. He didn't mind. The Empress smiled. Why aren't you at the hunting grounds but instead came to pay your respects to me? No rush. Yen Ci smiled. Aunt has black tea here. I'll have a cup before I go. While he was speaking, he looked down at me again. Miss Shui. Did your beloved come today? I raised my face and stared at him. He sat casually. A sarcastic smile hanging on his lips. He had investigated me thoroughly these past few days. Of course, he discovered that beloved was something I had made up. This humble girl has no beloved. Yen Ci raised an eyebrow. At that banquet. Who was it that? That day I was unwell. And my words were inappropriate. I lowered my head, my attitude respectful. Please, Commander, be magnanimous. The room went quiet for a moment. The noble ladies exchanged glances. However, Yen Ci laughed out loud, his face full of cold arrogance. Shui Jushin, this matter is not up to you. Whether you like it or not. You picked up my flower. So you are my wife. When entering the mountains, the Empress held my hand and insisted I sit with her. Ci is a clumsy boy with words. But in his heart, he cares for you deeply. She smiled worriedly. Look at how he insists on marrying you. I lowered my head in trepidation. The Empress observed me for a few moments, not understanding why Yen Ci took a fancy to me, which frustrated her more. The carriage moved forward slowly, following the trail into the mountains. The spring breeze blew, carrying the scent of flowers. Everything seemed fine. I touched the handkerchief in my sleeve. When we were entering the mountains, a girl from a wealthy family in yellow had stuffed it to me. There are many mosquitoes in these woods. Take this to keep them away. I recognized her. At the banquet in this life, she was the one who first picked up Yen Ci's flower. Just now in the Empress's tent, when Yen Ci said he wanted to marry me, her eyes had turned red. I didn't refuse her. I feigned fear and accepted it. In my previous life, I heard elders in the estate mention a spice from the border. It's harmless for humans to smell. But wild beasts will go mad if they catch the scent. I didn't expect someone to use this trick against me in this life. How unfortunate. When the carriage reached a remote forest path, I quietly stuffed the handkerchief into the gap in the seat cushion. This spot was very close to the Empress, close enough that if a beast came, it definitely wouldn't bite anyone else first. The Empress was still chatting with the noble ladies nearby, completely unaware. The woods suddenly went silent. No birds calling, no cicadas chirping, even the wind had stopped. A loud roar suddenly erupted from the forest. Wild beast. Protect her, quick, protect, but it was already a step too late. In the blink of an eye, a fierce, massive tiger lunged at the carriage. It was so fast the guards couldn't react. The Empress's face turned deathly pale. In that life or death moment, I shielded the Empress. Everyone screamed. The second before the tiger bit, I turned and snatched the diamond-encrusted dagger, hanging from the Empress's waist, and plunged it deep into the tiger's neck. Scalding blood sprayed out. But the tiger didn't stop. Its claws swiped across my shoulder, leaving a bloody gash. I was thrown back and slammed hard onto the ground. The tiger was enraged, growling as it closed in on me. The dagger was still stuck in its neck. I had lost my weapon, and could only use my hands to push myself back on the ground. The wound on my shoulder hurt like hell. Blood flowed down my arm, leaving a trail of blood on the ground. The tiger approached step by step, its eyes filled with killing intent. The guards were rushing over in a panic. They weren't far. If I could just hold on a bit longer, I'd be fine. But the tiger didn't give me any chance. It bared its teeth, white fangs glistening, breath reeking. My hand scrambled blindly in the dirt. Grabbing a handful of sand and mud, I threw it right at its eyes. In the second the tiger paused, I rolled to the side and grabbed a piece of wood to hold in front of me. The tiger charged at me frantically. My pupils contracted. That second seemed to stretch out, becoming very, very slow. In the nick of time, a cold light flashed before my eyes. A red-tasseled spear flew through the air and pierced straight into the beast's head. The tiger's massive body crashed to the ground, splattering blood everywhere. A young commander stepped onto the beast's head and leaned down to look at me. "You've got guts." The voice was crisp, with a hint of playfulness. Clearly, it was a woman. She raised an eyebrow, using a small stick to poke a wild beast. I was stunned. Yanxi's trembling voice came from behind me. Yanxi's face was full of surprise. "When did you return to the capital? Why didn't you inform me? I would have gone to welcome you." Grand Commander Meng Chonghuan interrupted him, her tone both polite and distant. "I returned on orders and happened to pass by." "No need to trouble yourself." Yanxi's hands tightened and then relaxed. His gaze stayed on me. "By the way, Chonghuan," Yanxi seemed to suddenly remember something. "Let me introduce you. This is my fiancé-to-be, Shui Zhuxin." He spoke in a casual tone, but his eyes were fixed on Meng Chonghuan. He thought she would be surprised, dejected, or at least care a little bit. But Meng Chonghuan only let out an "oh." Then she looked at me, and then at Yanxi. Regarding his fiancé-to-be, Yanxi had his usual indifferent smile on his face. She caught my eye at the banquet, so I decided on her then and there. Meng Chonghuan frowned. Yanxi's smile froze. "What is it?" Meng Chonghuan didn't answer him. She was staring at me. She tilted her head in confusion. "Shui Zhuxin, you. How could you ever take a fancy to him?" Yanxi's expression changed. I was also stunned. Meng Chonghuan didn't wait for him to respond. She simply tore off a piece of her sleeve and casually bandaged my wound. Yanxi stood where he was, his face turning pale and then red. "Chonghuan, what do you mean? Your fiancé-to-be is injured. You don't ask if she's in pain. But instead, right here, you're picking a fight with me?" Meng Chonghuan's gaze was indifferent. "In any case, we both have our own duties to fulfill. General Yan, please respect yourself." After speaking, she swept me up into her arms. She carried a pleasant, refreshing scent of dry wood. It was so comforting that I almost wanted to fall asleep. I clenched my palms tight, trying to stay conscious. "Commander Meng," I whispered to her, "I can walk on my own." Meng Chonghuan looked down at me. She didn't say a word. I bit my lip and repeated myself. She still ignored me, carrying me steadily forward. I reached out to push her shoulder, but the moment my hand touched her clothes, she grabbed my wrist. Her gaze fell on my palm, which was covered in crescent-shaped red marks from my nails. My face turned pale, feeling the embarrassment of being seen through. The next second, I heard her sigh softly, holding on even when in such pain. "Shui Zhuxin, you must have suffered a lot." I was woken up by the pain. The gash on my shoulder felt like it was burning. I instinctively curled up, only to hear an indifferent voice say, "Don't move." On the desk, only a single small lamp was lit. A young man sat by the bed, flipping through a book with his head down. He had a very handsome, clean-cut face. His features were 70% similar to Meng Chonghuan's, but without her bold and striking aura. In its place was a strong sense of aloofness. He closed the book and glanced at me. "I've just finished stitching your wound. If it rips open again, I can't guarantee it will look pretty." I blinked in a daze. Divine Physician Meng? I had heard of him, Meng Chongning, the youngest top physician in the Imperial Academy. Rumor had it that his medical skills were extraordinary. No matter how difficult the illness, he could bring anyone back to life, but he was cold and unsympathetic. He even treated the emperor with a stony face, refusing to offer even a smile. Meng Chongning gave a casual hum, walked to the table, and began writing a prescription. "My sister told me to come look after you. She said you're gutsy, so she told me to keep an eye on you, to make sure you don't kill yourself with your own antics." Meng Chongning looked up at me. "If you have something to say, then say it." "Where is Commander Meng?" Meng Chongning took on an "I knew you'd ask" attitude. "She has work to do, and couldn't get away. But she didn't feel easy leaving you alone, so she kicked me over here." I thanked him softly, but he said, "I didn't want to come at first." He glanced at me. "I can't be bothered to save someone who doesn't value their life." But the Empress also spoke up, telling me not to ignore your injuries. "He's actually all right." He just doesn't have a single nice word to say. While I was muttering to myself, Meng Chongning placed a small green bottle on my pillow. I'll come change the dressing once a day. If it hurts, say so. Don't just tough it out. I secretly took back my previous thought. At least there was one kind sentence after all. After Meng Chongning left, I toyed with the small green bottle and whispered, "Have you seen enough?" In a corner the candlelight couldn't reach, the wandering spirit appeared. Shui Zhuxin. You're truly cruel. He stepped out of the darkness, allowing the moonlight to pass right through his body. You almost died. Do you think I can't see what you're planning? I said nothing. His voice grew hoarse. To go through such lengths to set a trap like this. Almost paying with your life. Just to break the engagement with me? Our eyes met. The emotions in his eyes were laid bare. A mix of anger and grievance. We were husband and wife in that life. Do you really have no heart? I laughed out loud in surprise. My heart was always empty to begin with. That's not a bad thing. Bamboo is strong. Precisely because it is hollow. Therefore, the wind doesn't break it. And the snow doesn't bend it. He stared at me blankly. His eyes covered in a layer of mist. Can ghosts shed tears too? I was curious. But then I thought. He doesn't even have a physical body. So where would tears come from? It was nothing more than his obsession playing tricks. What kind of deep love are you trying to act out? You've watched the show for so many days. Don't you think you're overacting? After that night, I never encountered that ghost again. After half a month of recovery, I could move again. Meng Chongning continued to come every day to apply medicine. He was always in a hurry, never speaking more than 5 sentences. One day, I took the initiative to say a 6th sentence. Divine Physician Meng, I want to learn medicine. He was organizing his medical box. His hand stopped, and he looked up at me. Oh, what did that mean? I soon found out. The next day, when Meng Chongning came to apply medicine, he brought a chest full of books. The Inner Canon, Treatise on Cold Damage, Essential Prescriptions. Shinong's Classic and others were stacked together. Taller than me. Meng Chongning spoke coldly. Read them. I casually opened one. It was filled with his annotations. The corners of my eyes crinkled in a smile. This pile of medical books was not unfamiliar to me. In my past life at the commander's mansion, I had plenty of free time. No one to talk to. No one to visit. My only pleasure was reading. There was a row of medical books in the mansion study. I read them over and over again, until I could recite them from memory. However, some passages were extremely difficult to understand. With no one to guide me, I only had a partial understanding. But now, with Meng Chongning's annotations, I immediately understood things I couldn't grasp in my previous life. When Meng Chongning came on the 7th day, I told him with a smile, Dr. Meng, I've finished the books. With a half-smile, Meng Chongning picked up the Inner Canon of the Yellow Emperor. Recite it. I immediately began. The Emperor asked Ji Bo, I cherish my people and collect their taxes. I grieve that they do not have enough, and that they suffer from illness. I didn't recite it fast, sometimes having to stop and think. But not a single word was wrong. Meng Chongning quietly picked up another book. On the pulses and treatments of diseases of the Zongfu organs. I answered quickly. A student asked, a master treats a disease before it arises. How is this determined? One who treats a disease before it arises knows that liver disease spreads to the spleen, so he must first strengthen the spleen. When the spleen is strong in all 4 seasons, it will not be affected by evil. The middle palace is not small. One who does not understand this and fails to treat the spleen, fails to treat the liver disease. I finished and looked at him. Meng Chongning was quite satisfied. He pulled a case study out of his medical box and tossed it in front of me. Review this and tell me where the prescription is wrong. He pulled up a chair and sat opposite me, flipping through a book. In the evening, I closed the case file and returned it. He glanced at my notes. He smiled slightly. The point you raised is indeed debated. The Imperial Academy argued over it for 2 days and finally used a compromise formula, but neither was as good as your new prescription. We'll continue tomorrow. I blinked my eyes, suddenly wanting to cry and laugh at the same time. I thought, Shui Zhuxin, your previous life was not in vain. Even if you were walking in the dark, every step counted. The backyard of the Imperial Academy of Medicine became the place I reported to every day. I learned extremely fast. Even Meng Chongning was very impressed by my talent. In just 2 months, the prescriptions I wrote could already be used as medical cases. That day, while I was sorting herbs, the courtyard door was kicked open with force. Second Miss Shui. Quite leisurely. Yan Ci looked down at me haughtily. I've been looking for you for over half a month. So you were hiding in the Imperial Academy. I stood up calmly. I am studying medicine here. Studying medicine? Yan Ci sneered. You are about to become a wife. What do you need to study medicine for? I looked at him, puzzled. I have already broken off the engagement. Yan Ci's face darkened. Who said so? Her Majesty the Empress. Half a month ago. I asked Her Majesty for a reward. Her Majesty agreed. Do you really not know, General? After I woke up, the Empress promised me a reward. I directly stated that I did not want to marry Yen Ci. The Empress was silent for a while. ACI does have a bit of a temper. But you don't have to. I softly interrupted. I am not doing this out of spite. Seeing my persistence, the Empress didn't try to persuade me further. Yen Ci might have heard about this, but he didn't take it seriously. Stubborn man. He stood before me, his expression grim. You are Shui Zhuxin. Are you insane? I gazed at him calmly. Yen Ci's mouth twitched, his eyes suddenly landing on Meng Chongning inside the room. Meng Chongning was looking down at a book, seeming completely unaware of the commotion out here. Yen Ci stared at him for a while, suddenly realizing something. You broke off the engagement with me. Because of this little pretty boy? I frowned. Dr. Meng is my teacher. Yen Ci laughed mockingly. A man and a woman alone in a room. And you talk to me about respect, teacher? I didn't know such filthy business happened in the palace. I raised my hand and slapped him. I said coldly, shut up, General Yen. My studying with Dr. Meng was also permitted by Her Majesty. After Yen Ci left, I remained where I was, dazed. The words he left behind echoed in my mind. You think it's over just because the engagement is off? I'm telling you. Shui Zhuxin, I'm the type of person who loves to force things. Whether dead or alive. I'll be haunting you forever. I wanted to clean up with an expressionless face, when Meng Chongning's voice came from behind. I turned around. I didn't know when he had come out. Hand. He glanced at my reddened palm and said, at least you didn't dig your nails in. That's progress. I fell into deep thought. These two siblings were definitely cast from the same mold. Yen Ci was in a foul mood lately. The news of his engagement being broken again had spread throughout the capital, and it was approved by the Empress. He didn't even have a chance to make excuses. ACI. Miss Shui saved my life. I couldn't refuse her. I also understand you're not short of women. But he just couldn't swallow this insult. He was Yen Ci. What kind of woman couldn't he have? Yet, the daughter of a low-ranking official not only rejected him in public, but also took the initiative to break the engagement. Now, the whole capital was laughing at him. Have you heard? The second Shui miss dumped young General Yen. That's not called dumping. It's called breaking the engagement. What's the difference? Either way, she didn't want him. During this time, he frequently recalled that scene on the mountain. Shui Zhuxin holding that branch, covered in blood. Her resolute posture. His mind was restless. He didn't even have time to think about Meng Chonghuan. Yen Ci crushed the wine cup in his hand. The fragments cut his finger, blood flowing freely. But a cold laugh came from the study. Is this all you're capable of? Yen Ci instantly drew his sword. Who's there? He turned and met the gaze of another version of himself. That person's face was as pale as paper, his eyes pitch black. Under the moonlight, he was weightless and cast no shadow. Yen Ci's pupils contracted. What kind of thing are you? The thing smiled. I am you. The ghost told him some things. Like how in the previous life, he and Shui Zhuxin were married. And afterwards, he died at her hands. Yen Ci laughed. Are you joking? You mean that wooden woman? If you look down on her so much, why are you still haunted by her soul? Yen Ci couldn't laugh anymore. What did you come to me for? He turned his head away, his tone stiff. The spirit floated over. To teach you how to make her regret it. Yen Ci felt like he had heard a huge joke. Why should I make her regret it? A woman who broke off her engagement with me? The spirit imitated his daytime appearance, repeating emotionlessly. I'm telling you, Shui Zhuxin. I'm the type of person who loves to force things. Yen Ci fell into a strange silence. You heard all that? The spirit mocked. Stubborn. That night, Yen Ci didn't sleep at all. His mind was full of what the spirit had said. It's just that you haven't lost her yet. You will regret it. Regret treating her like that back then. Go and see for yourself. See what she does every day. See what kind of person she is. Yen Ci couldn't help but ask. And then? Then. You will be just like me. Unable to rest in peace. Through a twist of fate. Yen Ci believed the spirit's words. Even he himself didn't know why. It was early summer. The locust tree's leaves were thick, perfectly concealing his figure. He hid in the tree, secretly watching Shui Zhuxin. Sometimes she leisurely picked herbs, pounded them, and boiled them. Sometimes she sat across from Meng Chongning, writing prescriptions. Occasionally she would look up to ask something. Meng Chongning would reply. And she would nod. Then she would continue writing. This was a Shui Zhuxin he had never seen. She was so radiant he couldn't look away. He turned and left. But came back the next day. Then the third day. The fourth, the fifth. He told himself. He wanted to see what gave her the right to break the engagement. Until one day, half a month later. It rained. She held an umbrella. And carried a food box in her right hand. Yan Ci stood in the rain, watching her take out several plates of pastries from the box. Then dish out a bowl of hot porridge. And place them before Meng Chongning. Meng Chongning frowned. His face full of resistance. Shui Zhuxin blinked. If you don't eat in the morning, your stomach will be empty. Digestion will be weak. And your qi and blood will be deficient. In the long run, illnesses will arise. Meng Chongning was speechless. Meng Chongning obediently picked up the bowl. Shui Zhuxin was cheerful. That's more like it. Yan Ci suddenly found this scene an eyesore. He had never eaten a meal cooked by her. That dead ghost was her husband. He didn't know if he had eaten her cooking. At that moment, Yan Ci felt extremely frustrated. He thought about it for a day and a night. Early the next morning, he intercepted Shui Zhuxin on her way to the palace. The young general, always surrounded by people, didn't know how to please someone. He only walked straight up to her and spoke awkwardly. Shui Zhuxin, I will teach you martial arts. He had thought about it for a long time and decided this idea was excellent. When she fought the tiger, she had nothing but courage. If she encountered danger again, relying only on reckless courage would lead to trouble sooner or later. Besides, the martial arts he taught would be more useful than the herbs Meng Chongning played with. Shui Zhuxin refused him, however. No need to worry. Someone is already teaching me. Yan Ci was dumbfounded. Who? Meng Chongning? That weakling couldn't even kill a chicken. Shui Zhuxin was silent for a moment. He's not a chicken. Yan Ci was almost about to blow up. Is that the point? He decided to go and see for himself what was going on. In the evening, he found Shui Zhuxin in the forest west of the city. She was wearing loose-fitting clothes. Her hair tied up high. Holding a wooden sword. Meng Chonghuan stood behind her. One hand grabbing her wrist. And the other pressing on her waist. After adjusting her posture, she stepped back 2 paces, watching her practice with arms crossed. Yan Ci watched for a long time, feeling lost, his knuckles turning white from clenching. What do you look like, peeking here? Like a stray, unwanted dog. Yan Ci turned around immediately, staring hard at the face identical to his own. Then I'd like to ask you. What did you do to her? The spirit froze. Why would she rather risk her life against that tiger than marry you? Yan Ci stared into his dodging eyes. And suddenly understood everything. You said you were husband and wife in your past life. But in her heart, you are more terrifying than a wild beast. The spirit's lips moved. But not a single word came out. His younger self looked at him with a cold smile. Just as he suddenly recalled the years of his past life. After a long silence, it was unknown which version of himself first spoke so harshly. Meng Chonghuan was preparing to return to the border. Tensions were high at the front line. She petitioned the court and was to leave the day after tomorrow. I thought about it all night and went to the training grounds to find Meng Chonghuan the next morning. She had just finished practicing martial arts. Beads of sweat on her forehead. She stabbed her spear into the ground and leaned against it, waiting for me to speak. General Meng, I looked up at her. I heard the front line is short of military doctors. She raised an eyebrow and waited for me to continue. I've studied medicine for quite a while. I can treat colds, external injuries, and set bones. Dr. Meng said I'm already ready to practice. I handed her Meng Chongning's recommendation letter. In truth, my skills were still far from enough, but I wanted to seize this opportunity. When Dr. Meng learned of my intention, he didn't ask much, but quietly wrote the recommendation letter. I had secretly opened it to look. The man who was usually so sharp-tongued was surprisingly gentle when he wrote. Of resilient character, superb medical skills, and able to handle matters alone. I want to follow you to the front line. Meng Chonghuan didn't even look at the recommendation letter. I understand you, and I believe in you. She patted my shoulder gently. The day after tomorrow at dawn, at the 10-mile pavilion outside the city. Don't be late. The afternoon sun was bright. I stood there, staring at her back as she rode away. How could anyone in this world not like her? Riding a white horse. Swift as a shooting star. She lived so freely in this world. Even her death was noble. I lowered my head and smiled faintly. I used to have some hatred. But now I realize how good you are. So good that I also want to become like you. I quickly packed my bags. A few sets of clothes, a set of acupuncture needles, the medical texts Dr. Meng gave me, and the short dagger Commander Meng gave me. This was my entire fortune. I left a letter for my mother. Aside from the two from the Meng family, I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. In the middle of the night, an uninvited guest arrived. It was someone from the Shui family. The general invites you over for a talk. Before I could even respond, a towel was pressed over my nose and mouth. When I woke up, I was somehow dressed in wedding robes. In my line of sight, a pair of wedding candles burned quietly. This was the general's mansion. The scene was hauntingly familiar. A pair of cold hands helped me up. Yan Ci was wearing a bright red wedding robe, his face bearing a strange, sickly expression. I instantly knew he wasn't the young Yan Ci. The red candles cast a glow over the bed. On our wedding night back then, I deeply regretted not coming. If we had shared that wedding cup then, could we have made it? I turned my head away in revulsion. How is it you? Did you kill him? Are you pitying me? He laughed softly. We were always the same person. I counted the sounds of the watchman outside. Staying silent, dawn was nearly here. Yan Ci saw through my thoughts. He said he had forged my handwriting and wrote a letter to Meng Chonghuan, saying I had reconsidered and wanted to stay in the capital after all. I hoped the general would understand. Chonghuan can leave, but you cannot. I stared at him blankly, trembling all over. You're insane. My tears began to fall. Is it going to be like this even after another life? Is it always going to be like this? Seeing my tears, Yan Ci knelt before me in a panic. He tried to wipe them away, but they only fell faster. I'm sorry. His voice was shaking. He was actually crying. I'm sorry, Xu. I'm sorry, please give me one more chance. I will never fail you in this life. I stared at his pathetic, pleading face. One word at a time, I hate you. Yan Ci smiled through his tears. Then hate me. Just never forget me. He leaned close to my head, pressing his forehead against mine. If I can't have your love, then having your hate is also fine. In this life, you are only fit to be entangled with me until death. Could he actually cry? In that second, I suddenly understood. The person weeping right now wasn't him, but the young Yan Ci. I saw two expressions warring for control over his face. One was the madness of a demon. The other was the confusion and agony of the youth. The two souls could not come to an agreement, fighting over the body. Get out. Get out right now. You piece of trash, even now you want to let her go? He said he hates you. Don't you hear him? He's unwilling. So what? I'll force it anyway. Don't you want to? Yan Ci released me and grabbed his own throat. While they were locked in an inseparable struggle, I fled into the night. I rode through the main streets. The hem of the robe was too long and got caught in the stirrup. I looked down and tugged it twice, but couldn't pull it free, so I simply ripped it off. The weather is dry. Beware of fires. The night watchman passed the alleyway with a lantern, his back hunched. The firelight flickered in the darkness. The calls of the watchman that I used to listen to while crying were all left behind. This time, there was no need to wait for dawn. I would chase the sun myself. Forward, go forward. Shut up. We are not the same. Yan Ci rolled on the ground in agony. I'm telling you. I will never become as pathetic as you. Gasping for breath, he plunged the dagger into his chest. The moment the blood flowed out, the demon finally stopped the struggle. The young body fell heavily to the ground. Finally, there was silence. In that second, Yan Ci remembered the Shui Zhuxin he had dreamed of. That was her in the past. She neither cried nor laughed, dying alone in that small courtyard. Yan Ci thought it shouldn't have been so extreme. Shui Zhuxin. No one will stop you this time. Go. Go now. Yan Ci tried hard to widen his eyes, watching that open door. The night wind blew in. The moment the candles went out, the demon screamed. He had fought for so long, claimed this body, put on the wedding robes, and lit the wedding candles. And the result? He still never drank that cup of wine. His younger self finally learned to let go. But the ghost who had been reborn was trapped in obsession with no way back. In the darkness, the wind was lonely. Only the harsh laughter of the demon remained. Unsure if he was speaking to him or himself. You fell for her. Yan Ci, you'll die with regrets. This time, Yan Ci didn't make a sound. Entanglements of love and hate, all a tangled mess. A cold wind whistled past. This was the darkest night before dawn. Dew soaked my clothes. Feeling icy cold, my mind became even clearer. The Shui mansion and the capital were all left far behind me. In the faint light, the outline of the city gates appeared. Massive and quiet. I didn't hesitate. I rode out. The moment the horse galloped out of the gate, something snapped behind me. Perhaps the rope of fate. I looked up at the moon. Over the vast fields. The moon had also turned into just another star, no longer hanging above high walls. Like a pair of sad, weeping eyes. Jushin, oh Jushin. So it turns out. The world is this wide. A person stood outside the 10-mile pavilion, clad in silver armor, with a spear leaning nearby. The handwriting was quite similar. Meng Chonghuan scrutinized me. I was covered in dust, but my eyes were bright. She raised an eyebrow in surprise. I almost went back to rescue you. No need. I tilted my chin. Just a minor complication. She didn't ask further, but threw her water skin to me. The water was cold. As it flowed down my throat, my racing heart slowly calmed. Only then did I realize. Dawn had broken. Sunlight had overcome the night. The world had changed. Meng Chonghuan mounted her warhorse, turning back to see if I was coming. I smiled. The journey ahead was what mattered. The past was not worth mentioning. The world is vast. And the light is shining ahead.